Today's guest is a powerhouse in every sense of the word. Tiffany Carter is a former TV newscaster turned multi-millionaire entrepreneur and host of the top-ranked podcast Project Me with Tiffany Carter. She has helped over 150,000 people around the world monetize their passions through digital branding and content marketing, and her emotional sales-based techniques have generated over $250 million in sales. What? Yes. But what makes her story truly empowering is the journey behind her success. Raised in an abusive home and living with complex PTSD, she's made it her mission to be a voice for those suffering in silence and to help others create real emotional and financial freedom. You are going to love today's episode. Welcome to Empowered Now. I'm your host, Colette Kati. Join me as we talk all things to uplift, encourage, teach, inspire, and empower you to see your best self, to live your best life, and to thrive wherever you are. Welcome to Empowered Now with Colette Kati. I'm so excited for today's episode. I have a really special guest here that you may have seen already because she interviewed me just a little while ago. But I really wanted to showcase her here on Empowered Now because her story is going to blow your mind. And I thought that on our interview together, I was like, oh my gosh, I should have asked her this and this and this. But then we just decided, let's flip it. And so, Tiffany, thank you for being here.
I'm really happy that we're having an extension of this conversation. You know, you came on my podcast and it was so appreciated, you know, with people really opening up the dynamic of how our childhoods impact every area of our life, our money life, our relationship life, our belief around success and support. And there's just not enough people maybe who've like done the deeper work, who are open and willing to have like the more uncomfortable conversation. So I appreciate that, like, you're willing to have it and you're willing to hold space for your audience now to like have that with me here.
Yes, thank you for saying that. I feel that if we can't really be open about, and obviously there's wisdom to not being open when you're in the middle of something. You need to have space and boundaries around that. And just to clarify, I want to give a trigger warning. Some things in this episode may be triggering for any of you that have experienced childhood trauma, sexual trauma, those kinds of things, because Tiffany has been through the ringer. And I don't, we're not going to, dive too deep, but we're leaving it open to go where intuition and source is flowing us to go. And we will, we'll do our best to support those that are listening as well through this, because I am so inspired by your story and what you have been through. And that's what made me lean into you. I haven't really said, I guess I said this in your podcast, but Tiffany is my coach. I hired her because when I first heard about her, my sister, she's like, hey, you need to hear about this Tiffany Carter. She's so cool. I love listening to her. And so I was like, okay. So I listened to even just one podcast. And I was like, damn, she's good. Like, I really felt like you spoke straight to my heart and what I was dealing with. And I just soaked up every episode. And then you started to talk about what you had been through. And I leaned in even more. I was like, what? Because your story of empowerment, going from just really the worst childhood and having absolutely no support to building $1 million businesses, I'm like, okay, I need to know, what is your roadmap? Because it's powerful. So I would like to know, and maybe you can just give us a brief rundown of your story, what you feel would be relevant to help my audience, the people that are watching and listening, to understand like where you came from. What was your bringing up, your childhood like?
My story is different than a lot of like empowerment speakers that people see out there where it's like rags to riches, I was raised in a very wealthy family in a wealthy suburban neighborhood. And it's an important part to the story that will like unfold because it's not conventional.
Mm-hmm.
And on the outside, I had an Olympic-sized pool in my backyard, 2 in gourmet kitchens, a wine cellar as big as people's like bedrooms, okay, to give like some context on the type of house I grew up in as an only child and being raised predominantly by a single mom. But that mom is a narcissist. That mom is anorexic. That mom has a true addiction. I'm not saying this lightly, to male attention. I mean, it's an actual real addiction, like her life depends on it, and puts that as a priority over anything else.
Mm.
And people were obsessed with my mom. Like anyone who's experienced or dealt with narcissists, it's like people just fall over these people. They think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I'm not saying she didn't have some admirable qualities. I mean, this is a woman who's an entrepreneur who went to Harvard Business School. Like she had a lot of impressive things about her, charismatic, all the stuff like most addicts. And behind closed doors from the ages of 11 to 21 years old, I was being pimped out.
Wow.
So I was being required at client parties that were held in the house to serve cocktails, to wear provocative clothing. These men, and most of them were men due to the nature of the business that she was in, and they would make comments to me kind of like what you would imagine men would make in comments, like if you were a waitress at like Hooters, okay?
Right.
But I was
Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that made me feel like I was a grown up doing that, like that. And I got praise and I got acceptance from
Mm-hmm.
my mom for doing these things. And if I didn't do them, that just wasn't an option in my home. So
Right.
I was dealing with all of that and then some, and didn't have anyone to go to for validation or support. There's no siblings. Both of my parents are only children, so I don't have any cousins. My only living relative is my mom, who I'm in no contact with for many years now. And
Understandably.
yeah, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
I had to play the game. And if I didn't play the game, the abuse would be worse. So
Right.
I was conditioned to, in order to get love and acceptance and safety and security, I had to give literally anything and everything of all of myself. And that's how I thought love worked.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was taught, that was the thing. So while people were, admiring things from the outside and thinking I was so lucky, oh, she's so spoiled, she gets this, that, and the other, it was the house of horrors going
Yeah.
on that no one knew about. Well, that's not true. There's definitely people who knew, but they turned a blind eye, which I'm sure we'll get into. When you see other adults turning a blind eye to stuff that's going on, it then reinforced to me that this is actually normal, that this is
Yes.
okay. And me not liking it is irrelevant. Like, this is just like part of life. Like, suck it up, honey. Because if something was really bad about it, these other adults would, I would imagine, do something, say something. But I still knew that there was something not right, because when I would go to friends' houses, which, as you can imagine, I tried to do like sleepovers at other people's
Yeah. Get
houses as
out.
often as
Whatever you had to
possible.
do.
I was like, it was a very different vibe in these people's homes, dynamic. I mean, there was like actual sugar I could consume, which was enjoyable. And there was like none of that in my house.
Wow.
And so that's when I knew like it wasn't right, because obviously if I thought it was right, I would talk about it. But another aspect to the story that's important is, in middle school, which we all know is like a very tough time, I was labeled as the class slut,
Right.
because how I showed if I liked somebody, I was taught that you do things to them. Well, these were
Mm-hmm.
not things at that time. Unfortunately, I hear times now, there's lots of things like this happening. It's more normalized.
Mm.
But there were not things like this happening in 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade that I was doing. And
Right.
so I got like my house TP'd. I got like shaving cream all over the car. So I had like shame coming from all ends because then I had to clean it all up by myself. And it
Yeah.
could take all day or all weekend to clean it. So now I'm cleaning up and getting punished. And it was just a
But this is what you
repetitive
were taught.
cycle.
Yeah. At
Tiffany's a
11 years
bad
old.
girl.
Yeah.
Tiffany's bad. Tiffany can do all the things right that is being told by mommy dearest she has to do, and it's still not enough, and she is bad.
Right. Oh my gosh. And you were 11 years old when this started. So naturally, this is quote unquote normal for you. And you just, that this is how you act, because what else are you supposed to know?
Right. And I was conditioned before that. So like things could have happened before that the trauma is blocked from my mind. My guess is they're given she's a narcissist. Like my guess is there was abuse happening that made me extra susceptible to predators before then. Because I even remember performing as young as 5, where I would be taken to client dinners at like fancy restaurants. And I knew certain things to say, almost like I was a child actor. I knew certain things to say where the clients would all go, oh my God. Like they'd say my mom's name, which I'm not going to say, but they'd say, oh my God, blank, your daughter, she is so poised and she's so mature for her age and she's so refined and worldly. And I knew to do that because then I was going to be in good with my mom.
Right.
And so I was part of the dog and pony show for also her work.
Yes.
Because people were just so impressed with the whole thing. So I even remember at that age, like clicking into a performative mode, which is, think of the stress of that on a kid. Like,
oh my gosh.
Showtime, right? Like I couldn't just be a kid. I had to like peel an artichoke and use like the proper fork.
Right. Right. It's unreal. And it's so interesting to hear this story from you, because right now it feels like you're able to talk about this, and it's not, turning a blind eye, because I know so many people have experienced trauma like this, and even now being able to talk about it openly as you are to, thousands and thousands of people as you do on your podcast, it's so inspiring, but also a testament to the deep work that you have done, the incredible deep work that you have done. And I feel like I haven't known you super long, but I witness that every time I hear your podcast, every time that we have a session together. And I felt that deeply with you. I felt like this girl gets it, even before I knew the story that you had been through. And I have like being that young and experiencing this kind of thing, you just knew there was something wrong, but but it was still normal to you. How did you finally come out of it, and what did you do to stop it?
Well, what happens, and this is incredibly common, and some people listening to this are going to thaw out a little bit from some denial that their own brain or trauma has put them in, like stuff that you've buried will likely surface, which is why it's important for us to listen to conversations like this, because not that you have to like relive everything to heal from it, but what we're just stuffing down, it doesn't go away. It actually like really is life disrupting and causes so much pain versus addressing it and dealing with it and navigating through it. But what the trauma did, because it was so intense for me, is I was also taught, like the main abuser, for example, just to give an idea of the layers of psychological manipulation, I was taught to call him my brother. So
oh my gosh.
I even didn't remember how I texted you the other night.
Yes,
and there's that
yeah.
documentary on that YouTube family where the mom and the mom's name is Tiffany, which is even weirder.
Yeah. You're like,
and
what?
the mom taught that daughter to call her boyfriend, who was way younger, her brother.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was like, wow. And so because I'm calling him brother, right? Now that starts kind of normalizing it for me, it also normalizes it to the outside world. Oh, that's why Adam is spending so much time with Tiffany. They're like brother and sister, like my older brother. Right. So it was all kind of set up like that. So it helped,
so that it wasn't weird on the outside.
Yeah, it helped my brain go, well, you know, this is like my brother, and maybe I don't have a brother. So maybe this is like what brothers do.
Right.
Right. Like, because it was so, and then people's reactions. I mean, he took me out on, like, I'm talking like adult dates.
Yeah.
Like with alcohol, like at like trendy restaurants, like concerts. I'm talking like the girlfriend experience. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got served alcohol, shots.
What the?
No one, it was like I was invisible. And so the other thing that she convinced me of, and had other people reinforcing it, is how mature I am for my age and how mature I looked.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a childhood, like my mom put me in modeling. I didn't want to go in modeling, but
right.
Was I the tallest in my grade? I was, right? So like there were all these little things that I was like, well, maybe it's because I look so much older for my age. But like when my therapist had me pull photos from then, I was like, oh my God, like I'm a kid.
I'm a kid. Yeah.
What? Braces. Like I'm a kid, right? So I stuffed all of this. I even spoke at the main abuser's wedding when I was 19 years old.
Wow.
When I was a newscaster at 21, he still wanted his claws in me, and he flew to Washington where I was a newscaster, and I had him stay at my house at 21 years old. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I was so conditioned.
You were still like in it.
Right? It was like I needed someone else to kind of break the ice and wake me up. The denial was a form of like protection for myself of what was going on. Right. And what happened is I got put on a news story of a girl who was gang raped, and she was 12. And one of the people I was to interview was a psychologist talking about it. And after I did that interview, the psychologist, which did it, you know, discreetly, came up to me and said, I want to give you my card. No reporter has ever asked me the level of questions that you've asked me. And this would only be asked by someone who has gone through severe sexual abuse.
Wow.
And I just want you to be able to have a way to access someone if you want to. I was frozen. Wow. I didn't deny it, but I was like, you know, I was in that reporter persona mode, and I took her card and I was playing. Of course, I never contacted her, and I never reached out to her again to do any news story. I avoided it. Mm-hmm. I stuffed it. I can't deal with this.
Well, is this the first time that somebody's actually seeing you?
Yep.
Like seeing you clearly, and
the fact it was a psychologist.
And you're like, what? Oh my gosh.
Yes, this is the first time someone is seeing it. And then here I'm on TV, and slowly, you know how you get like a thread, like a loose thread in like a sweater? And you're like, oh, I won't cut it. I'll just like kind of tug at it. And then like it just, everything keeps unthreading.
Everything's unraveling.
That thread.
Yes.
This was the thread of unraveling, to where then I started getting anxiety. Then I started getting panicky. Then I started getting paranoid. Like when I was on, you know, on the news, because it's live, I was like, everyone can see me. Everyone can tell that this happened to me. Everyone knows. Maybe it's obvious. Everyone knows, you know, and I started getting really wackadoo. Mm-hmm. And it started slowly unraveling, and I kept trying to push the ball like a beach ball under the water, and I kept trying to hold it there so I would party. Mm-hmm. I would, you know, I would act out. I would dive into work. I would, you know, I became an exercise addict, all trying to like listen, we
Push
can't,
it
that's the
down.
past. We can't deal with it anymore. And then my then news director, thank God, brilliant man who was like a double major, and he also had a major in psychology. He met Adam. I brought Adam out to meet the entire newscast, because you would go out and like, we would go out and party and stuff after the news. Like, that's how much denial I was in.
Right.
And he saw how Adam was behaving around me and how I was allowing it, and knew immediately, like, this is not okay.
Mm-hmm. And how much older was he?
Yes. And
Yeah.
he intervened, and he did it well. He didn't do it where it was like, put me in like a cocoon of a, you know, rocking in a corner.
Mm-hmm.
But he was the second person who saw me and addressed it. And then I ended up having to leave the news business. I don't think I've shared this on a podcast before. I ended up having to leave because I was afraid I was going to have a nervous breakdown on the air.
Wow.
Because I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to hide.
You didn't want, yeah, it was too much. Like, you had been stuffing stuff since you were 11, like, or younger. Like, this is just what you do. And so now to hear, or to like be validated in the fact that this actually wasn't okay, I'm sure it was causing this, because you mentioned something about you started having anxiety after this woman saw you and noticed what was happening. Did you notice any anxiety or like fight or flight before that you just stuffed down?
No. Looking back, though, I can see it. Like in college, I went to school in Boston,
Mm-hmm.
and you walk everywhere, and I would have, as is properly termed, like intrusive thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So looking back, I would have these intrusive thoughts. Like, I would be walking and I would be imagining that like a piano would fall on top of me, or an icicle that was really pointy would fall and stab through my entire body. And then I'd be like, ooh, like, that's weird. Why am I thinking that? And I would like push it away.
Right.
So looking back,
Mm-hmm.
and I was incredibly promiscuous through high school and college, and I would say early 20s. So again, looking back, if I was coaching someone or a friend of mine and their daughter, and I was watching this, I would know immediately. Like, now I can usually even sense someone's energy that's a fellow survivor. Like,
Yeah.
it's so obvious to me. But I also had a good act going. I was taught by the best.
Right.
I had a well-refined role in a movie
Mm-hmm.
that my mask, or whatever we want to call it, it was pretty damn good.
Right. Right. So you are seen by this woman, then you're seen by your colleague. What happens next?
I ended up coming to Los Angeles because I had a lot of friends here from college, because the school I went to is like a big school in like the TV film world. And I did not want to be back in Chicago, where I'm from. So that wasn't going to happen. And I went from being an on-air TV newscaster to picking up dog shit and piss on Ventura Boulevard in a doggy daycare, because I could not function to work. I was barely functional, and I went into an outpatient program. Thank God it was free.
Right.
That was offered like by LA County or something. And it was an intensive program. Like, you were there like hours and hours every day. I think it was like 5 or 6 days a week. So I didn't like stay in a facility, but it was that intensive. And if I hadn't have done that, I definitely wouldn't be here. And it was a closed program, meaning you couldn't, it's not like a lot of 12-step programs where like, you could have one set of people one day and another the next. No, it was done also incredibly well. It's a teaching, kind of like a teaching institution. So you weren't getting like 30-year, therapists, right? But it was done so well. Art therapy, all of it.
Wow.
And thank God, because if I hadn't have done that, I don't know where I would be. I mean, I could have been, I wouldn't have been an addict, a substance addict, because I tried all the things and I'm just not, I don't have that gene. So that's also a
Right.
blessing, because I would be dead in a pile of cocaine somewhere, because I would have used that to dissociate.
Yeah.
So definitely I had divine intervention. When I look back, I didn't realize it in it along the way, where there were the right people at the right time helping me. But I had to want to help myself, though.
Yes.
I had
Yes.
to show up. I mean, I drove there every day. I could have chose not to. So there was some will in me as a survivor. There was something. And all this time, keep in mind, I'm still very enmeshed with my mother.
Okay. That's
I
interesting.
only went no contact with her, I guess we could say 7 years ago, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very enmeshed with her in every which way, including financially, which is something I talk a lot about on my podcast, right? The financial manipulation, the financial enmeshment that a lot of these people also use
To
to
keep
keep
you.
control.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that makes so
Or the
much
threat of
sense.
like being written out of a will, or, and because I was not making money, I formed a more of a dependence on her financially
Mm-hmm.
to pay for my rent. She even paid, like when I ended up going to private therapy, she did pay for that. That's what's so wild about
Right.
being involved with someone who's a narcissist or even a sociopath, because on one end, there seems to be like loving acts.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, when it was time for me to write the letter to her saying, what happened and what she did and blah, 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 she still employed this guy, the main guy.
Right.
She still employed him at her company, and she would not fire him, and she blamed me.
Ugh.
So it's like she still's never taken ownership, but I was so enmeshed because I was taught that, but I'd be riddled with anxiety. I still had to play the part. I still was doing all the dance.
Because she was providing for you.
I
Or do you
think even
feel,
if she wasn't, I still would have done the dance.
yeah,
I was so taught, and the codependency was so woven tight, and knowing that like my dad died right before my 25th birthday. So it's not like I had another parent to go to.
right.
And I knew that like, this is my only relative. Like, what would that mean if I didn't have connection with her at all? That would mean I'm dangling out here alone in the world, literally with zero blood family.
Right.
And so I was like, also probably clenching on to hope,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very codependent trait, right? That she's going to see the light.
Someday she's going to realize what she did and she's going to apologize. It's going to be amazing. We're going to, go on a picnic. It's going to be awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're going to go on a trip together,
Mm-hmm.
like all the things. And that's like the fantasy channel. And I really was like, she's got to see what she's done. And I was, it's so amazing how we're so willing to forgive
Yes.
people, because her acts were unforgivable. Yet I would have been willing to even take a crumb of I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't even a crumb of it. It was
Because
the opposite.
yeah,
It was Tiffany's fault.
this is your fault. Yeah. Oh, and knowing what you know now, probably, and I'm feeling this, and I'm sure the empaths in the room are like, oh my gosh, I just want to hold you and protect you. And I'm so glad that you brought up the codependency dynamic, because that is one of the biggest trials or struggles that people that are in a codependent dynamic struggle with, is that you want to believe better. You want to have hope that something is better than it is. And that's always what you hold on to. And maybe there's a lot of denial and stuffing down that happens at the same time. Oh, it's really not that bad. And maybe like there's constantly making excuses for the other person that is clearly crossing massive boundaries in your world. And what happens when we stay in that dynamic is that you continue to suffer. That's why when you have to look at the person for exactly what they are, it doesn't mean you have to hate them. But clearly, your mother was sick in her own right over there. And this is why I'm always telling people, do your inner work, because people will suffer when you don't. It's just true. And obviously, there's different levels to that. And I do believe
there's
that
like 500 layers to that.
so many layers.
And a lot of people aren't willing to do the real work. You know, they'll do the surfacey kind of stuff. And I'm not like criticizing anyone. I understand it's like scary, but don't fool yourself. It's like, I spent so long trying to go around the pain. And the only way to get on the other side of painful stuff is you have to go through it.
You have to go through it.
You'll cause yourself more pain trying to go around it, trying to stuff it, trying to minimize it, trying to be an acceptance of it, you know. And then people would say things to me like, but she's your mother. You only get one mother.
Mm-hmm.
And they would, so then I had the guilt even, because that's part of like the trauma bond and the conditioning. And then I felt guilty for having even anger towards my own mother, because it's not like my mom's all bad. I mean, she did provide for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would also get like cards from her that'd be like, to my most precious daughter. And there's all so confusing to me, to the point where I started going, maybe I'm making this all up. Maybe none of this happened. That's how tricky our minds are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Maybe, you know, I'm too sensitive, because that was something she called me all the time. Maybe I am like making some of this up. Maybe something only happened one time. And then I would try to like minimize it in order to be able to maintain a relationship with her, because seeing the truth for the truth is ugly. And if I really saw the truth is this woman is not safe to have in my life.
Yeah. And what does that mean? Then I have to do something. And what does that look like?
I'll be straight up with you guys. And people don't talk about this because there's shame, and it's also, you know, not super flattering. And this is what's so wild about it. One thing she did teach me, and like really reinforced, is, you know, as a woman, always make your own money, never be dependent on a man.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, once I really got into my like corporate career, and then I started a business, like I was very self-sufficient. I didn't need anybody for money. Like I worked my butt off. Like I've made my own money. Yet one of the main reasons I was afraid of disconnecting from her is that I would lose the ability to get whatever inheritance someday as her only living relative, because I felt like at least I'll get that. I deserve that.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
Understandable.
And I was kind of stuck on that story. I at least deserve that. And most people wouldn't argue with me. They'd be like, absolutely. It's like back pay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Of course you do. And it's not like she's like uber wealthy, but like there's dough there, right? There's cash there. And given I wouldn't have to share it with anyone. And this therapist that I had, thank God, shout out Lorraine, said to me, but you have no control whether or not you get that money.
Yes.
Right? She's like, it's not like you have a paperwork for an irrevocable trust. And I said, no, this is hung over my head.
Right. She's
and
just
she
saying
said,
it.
Right? She said, this could be donated to her name being on a side of a building. This could be all spent. This could be actually all a lie, and there could be not that much there.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel if like she died and you got nothing, or there was nothing there, and that you compromised yourself all of these years for that?
And that's the cost. That's the real cost. What are you willing to pay to get that? Years of compromise, is it worth it?
And anxiety and torment and feeling like crap. And that's when I knew, okay, I have to cut this off. I have to go no contact. It was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. And clearly you guys, you know, can hear I've done a lot of hard things. My my story from abuse to abundance, I think it's the first 5 or 6 chapters, is on my podcast if you want to like literally go through it, and there's in detail. And I think that's like linked in the show notes if you want to do that. Like, so we're just not like going into detail on here
Right.
because I don't think it's necessary. But you know, like I had to do it. It's like leaving a relationship you have to leave,
Yes.
right?
And that
Ending a
is,
friendship.
yes. And that's always the hardest. Boundaries and advocating for yourself when you have been conditioned the exact opposite is the hardest thing.
Because I was taught if you, first of all, I have no right to boundaries. Second
Right.
of
What is a
all,
boundary even?
having boundaries is not love.
Mm-hmm.
Love is giving all of yourself. I was literally taught that. And so
and I think that it goes to show, or not goes to show, but I want people to hear that again, because that is very common belief that if I have boundaries, I'm not showing love. That's not loving. But it's,
yes, exactly. Like, and it made me not a good person on top of it.
mm-hmm.
You know, that's just not what like a good, kind person does. That's like what an evil person does, and uncaring, and like
Yes.
to do it to your own mother or do it to someone who like did take care of you in a lot of ways. And I thought that doing this meant I was dangling out there in the world alone, and there was no one that would have my back, because at least the one thing I could tell myself is, at least if like my business like failed, then I could at least have somewhere to live. Like I could go to my mom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was someone that I could go to, even though like I wouldn't ideally want to. I at least had someone I could go to. I could also say I actually have a family member.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many things tied in there of what that represented. And I was in the fetal position, like rocking on the floor after I did it.
Yeah. Yes. And I
guess
really
what?
want,
She didn't really care to connect with me, like, because she's a narcissist.
right. She just moves
I mean,
along.
like, it's not, I'm her only living relative. It's not like, you know, it sounds wild to them, you know, probably to you, to other mothers listening. Like, how could you not want to try to reestablish a relationship or make things right with your daughter, with your child? But a narcissist, you're not that to them. They don't, no one is anything to them.
It's like, as long as you have now cut off her supply to use you, and so she doesn't need you anymore.
Exactly. I'm not giving her what she wants. And I saw her do this with friends, employees, men, all growing up. It'd be like, even my nanny I had, all of a sudden she vanished, like people I would get close to, and they would just disappear. And if I asked about them, she would just like scoff and say something. Like, people were just cut off real quick. And that's what ended up happening with me.
Yeah. Oh, it's so crazy. And you think about, and I want to say, because I know there's people listening right now that are hearing you and knowing like, oh, I have this dynamic with somebody in my life. And perhaps there is some shame there where you know that this isn't helping you, you know it's not serving you, but you have this attachment. And I know this happens so often with people that are in this codependent, you know, a lighter way of saying people-pleasing dynamic, that there is so much attachment there. And even if they can see it, even if they can see this is not helping me, this is not healthy, I know I'm giving up my power, I know I'm self-abandoning, but why do I keep doing it? And then the guilt comes, and then the shame comes. What would you say to the person listening that is now noticing or experiencing this?
First, we have to give ourselves compassion and love and grace and understanding of where that comes from, right? It is genuinely understandable. even after me having 500 years of therapy, even though I've coached over 150,000 people, I still end up, without me realizing it, over giving to people, tolerating unacceptable behavior if I don't have checks and balances in place, because I'm hardwired. Like, codependency is a disease, and it's like addiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're a diabetic. It's like you always have it. It is hardwired in you. You just get better at managing it. So, one, giving yourself that compassion, and two, I would say you don't need to do like the light switch with someone. I think that's what makes people stay in things, marriages, friendships, family dynamics, is I know I need to like end this friendship. I know I need to get a divorce. I know I need to stop talking to my dad, or, I know this person's toxic, and it's black and white thinking, which is a symptom of someone who's gone through trauma, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
All or nothing type
Yeah.
thinking. Well, there's a whole middle ground. I would say you need to start slowly detaching. Almost like when someone is sick and you can see where this is going to end. It's like a slow grief and you're preparing yourself.
Yeah.
Slowly detach energetically. Stop giving them so much and start giving more to yourself, because it takes time to learn how to do this. Because if you just cut something off a lot of times from these people, that's why so many people end up going back. And then the
Yes.
shame gets really loud. You took the guy back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you set a boundary and now you just broke your own boundary. Now you just taught this other person that like your boundaries are a joke. And then you're mad at yourself for not sticking with the boundary. You don't want to
Exactly.
make the boundary until you're in a grounded space and are able to actually adhere to it.
Right. And it's
And I
okay
wish
if you
someone
mess
said that
up.
to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you mess up. It's just like addiction, or if you're trying to quit alcohol, like, oh, I had a drink. It's okay. I'm starting again. It's the same as you're learning to set boundaries, as you're learning to distance or detach from people in your life that are not helping you thrive and are
I
hurting
want
you.
to,
They're
can
sucking
I,
from you.
exactly. I'm going to show you guys something. So you'd have to see this on YouTube, but I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important, and I've not shared this. I don't know why it came up. Look who's in my phone. Do you see?
Oh, she tried to call you?
These are my favorites. I have never taken my mom
Oh,
out of
yes.
my phone.
Hmm.
Think about that. And I'm still not going to. There's something that feels where I feel a little less alone about having her in there, knowing I could call at any moment, but I make a choice every day not to. And every day I don't, I'm choosing myself.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times, it's very rare. It happens usually around like Christmas time.
Yeah,
Certainly not
yeah.
Mother's Day. I like hate that holiday.
Right.
But like around Christmas time when I'm in the feels, and like of course I'm seeing all the Hallmark movies, and she's getting older, and I can start like wanting to do that, almost like an alcoholic who's sober, like, oh, I can just have one drink,
Yeah,
like it's
maybe she's
okay.
changed. Maybe she'll see me
Exactly.
this
And that's
time.
why it's so cunning and baffling, and this is a
Yes.
disease. Well, she's getting older, and like, won't I regret it if something happens to her? There's nothing else to say.
Yeah.
I've said everything.
Yeah.
And what would that be a setup for? I'm setting myself up to be re-abandoned. I'm setting myself up to be re-abused and re-traumatized. So
Mm-hmm.
what are you setting yourself up for every time you engage with this person that you know is not healthy for you?
Right. Right.
And when you answer that, it kind of is a wake-up call. Like, I'm setting myself up to feel bad about myself. I'm setting myself up to feel less than. I'm setting myself up for stress and anxiety. I'm setting myself up for feeling like a nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have your answer, right? Then that's the thing that needs to keep you from engaging with the person, or at least engaging in the same way
Yeah.
you have been, because it's like you said, self-abandoning. We're self-abusing by continuing to put ourselves in the proximity with somebody who is toxic to us. It's like, would we keep,
Yes.
and some people do, it's an addiction. People who are food addicts, like, if you had an allergic reaction to having dairy and you got
Mm-hmm.
rashes, you got sick, you had a major stomach problems from it, you even went into like potential anaphylactic shock from it, would you keep eating the peanuts, the ice cream? That'd be insane.
And that's
But
what
we
it
do it
is.
all the time. And this is like a collective we. We
Yes, we
do it
do it
all
all
the
the
time
time.
when it comes to people.
Mm-hmm.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also killing us.
Right. Right. And I would also add that I know there's people listening that are like, oh my gosh, you're right. I need to stop. Bringing it back to that slow unraveling that you were saying, allowing it to be a process where you're not just learning to detach from somebody, you're not just learning how to distance yourself, you're also learning how to advocate and choose yourself. Because, and I just coached a client this morning where we talked about how to have a boundary with somebody in your life that maybe you do want to keep in your life. Maybe it isn't this kind of a drastic abuse situation, but there is still the dynamic of narcissism. They're kind of being a vampire and sucking from you. That idea of advocating for yourself and learning to show up first for yourself, it matters when you're dealing with somebody that maybe you still want to keep in your life. But you've got to learn that those boundaries that are so hard to have. And I know Tiffany's talking about setting a boundary with her mom that was a very like cutting you out boundary, which was necessary. It doesn't always look that way. And I just want to make sure everyone listening understands that sometimes it needs to be that drastic, but it only needs to be that way when you're ready. And not every relationship will require that because some people, there's narcissists everywhere. We are going to live with them. They live among us. And we learn how to stand in our power and in our truth as we navigate those relationships. And so I love that Tiffany has addressed this and laid this out so clearly that it's not easy. And it's the shame and the guilt that you want to try to dump. You don't have to dump that person right now, but let's start dumping the shame and the guilt so that you can advocate and create that love within your heart so that you can, in a healthy way, continue to get stronger so that whatever level you need to get that person at a distance from you, whether it's cutting them straight off or learning how to have those physical and emotional boundaries, however that looks, you can do it because you have now given yourself that empowerment and that love. And I would love to hear what you did for yourself, Tiffany, during that time or after or leading up to when you were able to cut her out of your life that helped you gain that strength.
Yeah, it was a long time coming. So this was I like to call the lean in, lean out. So this was even look at it in terms of degrees, like 1% at a time. Then sometimes I jump to 5%. Where you're just slowly leaning out, fewer phone calls, fewer texts, um, you know, not being as reactive when she would say something, not being so quick to say yes, pausing first, right? So this was years of this for me to do this. And keep in mind, I was in therapy, also had a life coach. So, I had someone like what you do with people. I had that support to also help me. So I would not recommend doing this solamente. Okay. Like
Yes.
that's not a good setup. Like I wouldn't tell someone to quit drinking solo, or
Right.
start a business solo. Like this is not good. You need to set yourself up for success and the support that you deserve. So it was while I was leaning out from her, then I was leaning into myself. So the more I leaned out to her, it's not like then I leaned into another person. That would be being in my disease of codependency.
Yes.
As I leaned out from her, I leaned into myself. What did that mean? Investing time, energy, and money in learning to love myself, like all parts of myself. And I know there's like overused cliche like self-love, all that. I had no self-worth. But if someone had told me you need, to work with someone to help you gain your self-worth, or if there was like a book title about like, you know, get your self-worth back, I've been like, I don't need that. Like, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
confident career woman. Like, I thought no self-worth meant like you were like living in a squalor and you were just like this meek, miserable person.
Mm,
But the reality is I had zero self-worth. My entire identity was dependent on everything outside of myself.
yes.
And I needed to develop that. I probably never had it. My self-worth was dependent on whatever my mom thought of me.
Mm,
I
mm,
had to learn
yes.
what my favorite color was. I had to learn what things I really liked, because I would just like whatever she wanted me to like or a guy wanted me to like.
Right.
So that's what I mean by like doing things to work on myself. I don't mean like therapy isn't enough. I mean, that was important, but I had to deliberately take quiet time and spend time on myself and not be in my distraction of working and dissociating, shopping and partying and dating, because that's what I had done in order to not feel.
Yeah.
So I had to
Mm-hmm.
sit with those feelings. I call it sitting in the dirty diaper. It
Mm-hmm.
sucks,
It sucks.
but like you actually have to.
Right.
It's actually the faster way.
It is the faster way. And I think so many of us are scared that when we slow down, what are we going to find? What's actually
I
going to
was
be
afraid
there?
of what else I would find, and I thought I'd get stuck there. That
Yes.
I would be rendered like non-functional, like I couldn't work or pay my bills, or like I would literally end up like in an institution. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
was most afraid of. It was like, because letting go, because we're holding on so tight to keep everything all together and all the balls juggling. Like, what if I let go? I didn't know if I'd have it in me to like resurrect myself.
Mm-hmm. And what
But
was
it got to a point where I didn't have a choice. Like, I
right?
was so miserable as the Walking Dead. I had no life fulfillment. Like, I was left with no choice but to surrender.
Yes. And what do they say? Surrender to win. Surrender to win. And so, what was your actual experience when you got slow and you started being with yourself and really getting to know yourself? What was your actual experience? I know the fear was there that I'm just going to lose myself in this and I'll never come out of it. What actually happened?
It was magical. That's where the real abundance is. That's where the real personal power is. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But like that's the cookie. That's the reward for doing that excruciating work and
Mm-hmm.
the scary work is you create something that no one can ever take away from you. So like the people who see me now or hear me now are like, "Oh my god, you're so grounded in confidence and you're, and it's real."
It's
Right? Like,
real.
but this took a lot, this took a lot
I've
of
been
work to
working
get
my
here.
ass off to get
Yeah, like this
here.
took a lot to get to this, but the reward is no person, place, thing, job, institution, client, government can take this away from me. That's why my podcast and brand is named Project Me. We're the most exceptional projects of our lives,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
no one can take this away from me. I get rattled, don't get me wrong, but ultimately at core, I know who I am. I'm a person of integrity and I do genuinely love myself and I'm an acceptance of like my flaws. Like I'm like unwell in the mind and that's
Yes.
okay, right?
Yes.
Like and I'm okay with that. Like I'm really good with who I'm at on who I am on any given day. And then you can't be controlled or yanked around by like the dramas of life
Yes.
when you give that to yourself.
Yes. And this is what I'm always talking about. You moved from an outside in approach to life. Everything outside needed to validate what who you were. And the truth is that didn't actually work. And it worked on the surface for a while, but you were masking.
Well, it never ends.
It
It's
never
a
ends.
endless hole.
It's an
So
endless hole.
it would be like my success, it'd be money, it'd be my weight. And then once I achieved that thing, that wasn't enough. And it's not enough.
It's never enough.
Because it's an inside job.
It's an inside job. And the enoughness doesn't come from outside of you. It comes from within. That surrender and that deep knowing that you've got you and nothing's going to change that no matter what. And one of the things I love that you say all the time is that it takes a small village to keep you going. Like, you still have, obviously, you've got to manage what happened to you. You've got to manage the patterns that still come up. You've got people in your world that help you do that. But
I mean, I have 2 coaches, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a support group, a mastermind, and I welcome more if needed, because I deserve to have that support. And if I want to live the quality of life that I want to live and help the people I want to help and have the abundance I want to have, you get what you put into something. The more you invest in yourself, the more you're going to get back.
Absolutely.
But why do we do the opposite? Why is it so conditioned to deprive oneself? Right? Like, it's not noble to deprive yourself. You deprive yourself, you're not going to end up getting the abundance in your life that you want. It comes from the opposite, from pouring into yourself.
And it's not just going to happen. Like, there's not going to be some magical thing or person that comes along and gives you this validation, gives you this internal okayness that you're looking for. You've got to choose to advocate for yourself and go for it. And that's one reason why I've decided to do what I do as a life coach, because when I finally chose, I need a therapist, like, I need somebody that can see me clearly, and it changed everything. When my life started to unravel and I finally reached out and said, okay, I'm so ashamed and I feel so low and I'm so embarrassed. Like, I've got to tell somebody the worst parts of me. I'm not okay with that. But it got so low that I had a choice, obviously, but it was so bad that my internal clock was saying, you have to do this now or you're destroying yourself. And so that's why I chose to become a coach. And I have private spots open right now. If anybody's interested, this doesn't become available very often, but we've got some spots available. So if you're ready for that, if it's calling to you and you are ready to do this inner work that is going to free you from this deep denial, this inner hell that you might be experiencing right now in your life, please apply. Because I know that
it's really the best investment you can make in yourself, because the rewards that you get from it last your entire life and impact truly everything and everyone around you.
Everything. Because this internal shift that you're talking about, where you are solid and grounded now, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Nothing. No amount of money. Like, to know what you know now about yourself, to feel the way you feel about yourself now, it's absolutely priceless. Is it not?
I agree. And people will test this, by the way. And I've been heavily tested in the last, I would say, 6 to 8 months of a lot of testing. And I gotta say, like, if it wasn't for the work and the support that I have and the awareness that I have, that old me, where I was dependent on the external validation, I would have been absolutely destroyed from some of the things that have occurred.
Yes.
Because we're not going to be able to avoid all the toxic people. Like,
no.
That's not possible.
But they don't have to take you out of the game anymore.
Exactly. I cannot be, I might have a day or two where I'm melting down, but no one has the power to take me out of the game. And like, what's that worth to somebody? To me, that's worth everything.
It's worth everything. And that's been my experience too. I wouldn't trade the coaches, the therapists, the internal deep work that I've done on my own in the quietest hours of the wee mornings when I am like a ball curled up on the couch. I wouldn't trade continuing to advocate for myself, whether that means, hiring somebody, going to 12-step groups, like all of the things that I chose on a day-to-day basis for myself, which was not what I was doing the first half of my life, which I was advocating for everybody else. It's like, oh, okay. Do you see me as cool? Okay, thanks. But even now, I see those patterns come up, but I'm more aware, like, oh, I'm trying to hustle for my worth again. That's interesting. Okay, let me just go back to me. And I wouldn't trade this for anyone, for anything, for any amount of money. And even now, I feel like I look up to you so much. I'm so inspired by you. And sometimes I'm like, I feel like I get rattled when I'm hanging out with Tiffany because I'm like, I just love you. And I see you as somebody that has been through hell and back and hell and back again. And you have that solid, grounded self. And I just want to make sure everybody knows, if you're looking for somebody to help you build your business and somebody that gets it on a deeper level, not just the surface level, not just fantasy marketing of trying to, make a couple bucks. Like, she is the real deal, legitimate, not just in business, but who you are at your core is, it's just a pleasure to know you, for reals.
Thank you. I really take that in. And that's the gift of doing this work. Like, you can see me because you've done this work on yourself. I can see you because I've done this work,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, we know each other quickly. You know when someone's done that. And then now you're paying it forward. I pay it forward. This is how we help one another. Like, we don't have to stay in this spot, but it's a choice. You have to choose yourself.
Right.
And normally people have to get into a lot of pain to choose yourself. I know I did. I can be very stubborn. I had
Yeah.
to be in immense pain to finally choose me.
And that's okay. And if that's
And that's okay.
where,
Like, and when someone tells me they're in a lot of pain, someone is coaching with me or they want to work with me, and I go, I'm actually happy you're in pain, because pain's what propels us to take
pain's what
action.
propels you. Yes, absolutely. And that's the same for me. And that unraveling that happens, sometimes you can't control. I mean, you can't. You will never be able to control if life starts to unravel, but welcome it in. If that is you, if you're feeling, oh my gosh, that's me, my life is unraveling right now, notice it could be the universe calling you forward to move into something greater for you. Because I honestly don't feel like I would have become this version of myself had I not been in so much pain. I wouldn't have needed to.
Yeah, I wouldn't have changed.
Mm-hmm.
I would have kept running how I was running. I don't know if I'd be alive right now, but I would have
Right.
kept like running from myself, like in all those behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
if I was just like somewhat uncomfortable.
Yes, absolutely. And use it, even if you are in somewhere where you're just somewhat uncomfortable. Use it to make a choice, to advocate for yourself. I just love this conversation. I could talk all day with you and hear more of your stories. And I feel like there were questions that I didn't ask, but it's probably time to go. There is one more. What do you feel like you would want to share with somebody that maybe isn't, exactly where you were in the beginning, but somebody that is feeling that unraveling, how to start choosing yourself?
I'm going to share what I wish I had someone share, like, bluntly with me, or maybe I could have heard it. Like I said, I can be very stubborn. You were not put here to just be like happy sometimes or just feel okay or be getting through it. You know that there's something more in life, and there's something more to it. You're not imagining things. You're not some entitled person. You're not living in la la land. It's because you are meant to have a life that has like joy and serenity and abundance, and where you feel good about yourself. Like you're being called to take that action. And I would take a step forward in working with somebody who can help navigate that stuff for you, whether it's a therapist, whether it's Colette. Like, go beyond getting a book. I'm
Yes.
thrilled you're listening to this podcast. I want you to listen to mine. That's wonderful. But I want you to go challenge yourself. Let's just go one layer deeper. We don't have to go 5.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go one layer deeper and see where that takes us.
Yes.
And then you can reassess from there. And that alone will change your life. I thought I had to instantly go 50 layers deep, which I wasn't ready for. Well, of course, who the hell's ready to go 50 layers deep?
No
All
way.
we have to do is peel one layer of the onion at a time, and that's more than enough.
That's more than enough. One day at a time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And if you guys want to check out Tiffany's podcast and all of her other juicy goodies, they will be in the show notes and in the description on YouTube. And please leave us comments in the YouTube comment section. I read them, and I would love for you to give Tiffany some love. Include anything that you want to share about the topics that we've talked about today. And please reach out in our DMs as well if you have more questions. We're here. So thank you, Tiffany, so much. It's been an incredible honor, and I hope to have you on again at some point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you. Thanks for watching Empowered Now. If anything you heard today resonated with you and you want more, please like and subscribe so that you won't miss an upload. You can also follow me on social media at Colette Kati. And if you're interested in working with me more closely through coaching or other opportunities, go to my website, colettekati.com. It is my hope that you will continue to come back and experience for yourself the benefits of choosing an empowered life. Your feedback and your experience are very important to me, so please take a moment to connect with me in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on today's episode, ideas for future topics, and ideas for guests that you would like to see. And as always, thanks for your time, support, and your courage to live empowered now.